On today's video, we break down Alexander the Great. My first commander breakdown is going to be about the latest addition to Rise of Kingdoms in Update 20, Alexander the Great, nonetheless. Now, here's the thing. First of all, we're going to talk about a little bit about his history, just a tad bit. Secondly, talk about the skills. Now, guys, the skills are very important because there are a few typos and misconceptions in the text of the skill, and there is some things that Lilith Gaming has conveyed to me that I need to share with you guys about these skills. On top of that, talent trees, commander pairings, potential of use right now, potential for use in future situations, everything and anything about Alexander the Great in this video. Hey there YouTube, welcome back to the Gekko. What we are watching right now is the new commander, Alexander the Great. Now, I know the camera moved a little bit. It's kind of weird for me to get used to it too, but bear with me. Let's talk about Alexander. As part of his commanderness, about being a commander, right, in the game, it means that he is a commander or some sort of character from history, from real life. And so you can see on the eye icon right up here, not only that the date recruited, when you recruited him, star level and rarity, and kills both regular and barbarians, there's also a full text explaining the actual history behind Alexander the Great and every other commander. I recommend reading through this. You guys can tell your parents, if you're younger, that you're playing a game that's teaching you history. 2 thumbs up. Very good. I like the information in here. I spent the time and read it on all the commanders. Very much recommended. But the most important part of this video, I think, is gonna be the skills. Now, I read through the skills and went, huh? Because some of this text is very, very bad. Now, I talked to Lilith Gaming about this, and they've told me that they indeed think that the translation from Chinese wasn't very good, and they are working on fixing it. So do keep in mind that the text in these right here is gonna change in the near future to a better, more clean, more understandable text, but the mechanics behind the commander will not change. Okay, guys, so even if you see that the text moves and changes a little bit, the commander will not change in terms of the mechanics of the skill. The first skill, Alexander the Great puts a powerful shield for 4 seconds, and at the same time puts a second shield, a smaller shield, for the nearby friendly army with the lowest percentage of troops remaining for 2 seconds. So 4 seconds for his own army with a self shield of 600 to 1200 when maxed out, and a smaller shield to a friend that has the smallest percentage of troops left. Very important word right there, percentage. Up to 600 damage factor and starting at 200. This skill is pretty straightforward and understandable. This is where things started to be a bit weird for me. When incoming damage would be reduced on the map, replace damage reduction. Each normal attack gains a 10% chance to deal extra damage, 800 damage factor, as well as reduce the target's healing effect by 10% for 5 seconds. This goes all the way to 1730%, which you guys can see right there. But that first sentence is super important. When incoming damage would be reduced on the map, replace the damage reduction. What that means is as long as Alexander the Great is in open field, not inside a city, a flag, or a fortress, or a pass, or any building, as long as Alexander the Great is in the battlefield and he is affected by a reduction, any kind of reduction, a damage reduction situation, replace the damage reduction, which means he's immune to damage reduction. Only in the open field. Understand this because it's very important. This doesn't mean that you can defend until whenever, because no damage reduction will ever be done to you on a building or anything like that. This is only for field battle, open field battles only on the battlefield. So that's skill number 2. Skill number 3 is the standard increase infantry march speed and attack 10% all the way to 30, the standard infantry buffs. One thing that I forgot to mention is that this is an active skill. It requires 1000 rage. This is a passive skill, and this is also a passive skill, as well as the 4th skill. Increase attack by 20% after using an ability. When his shield is activated, the bonus changes to 10% defense. This also was a big question mark for me. I was like, but there's only one ability to be used. So what do you mean? So Lilith Gaming clarified that what they meant by this is so long as the shield is not activated, so long as skill number 1 was not activated, the attack damage bonus applies. When his shield is activated, the attack damage bonus now becomes defense bonus. So what this skill is as long as we're in offensive mode, we have 40% extra attack, which is nuts. And when the shield pops for the 4 seconds it's on, the defense actually grows by 30% and the attack bonus decreases. This is a super important thing to understand because it was also very unclear. So bottom line is, as long as there is no shield, there is attack. When there is shield, it's defense. Finally, the expertise is an enhanced shield of the king. And what it does is, as soon as it's expertised, it does almost the same thing, except for the fact that now it also does increase the damage taken by nearby enemies up to 3% for 4 seconds. So once you expertise him, the first skill will also, for the next 4 seconds, increase the damage taken by nearby enemies up to 3 targets. It doesn't say what kind of an AoE shape this is. And I'm here to tell you that this is going to be a circular shape. So it's going to be a circle around where the commander is in the center. I don't really know how big this circle is going to be just yet. But bear in mind, anyone nearby within the radius of the circle can potentially, who is an enemy, can potentially take the 30% damage increase. So keep that in mind. It's going to be a circular AoE and not a fan shaped or something like that. So that pretty much does everything about the skills. Let's talk very briefly about his talent tree. And the reason I say very briefly is because you really don't have that many choices. And for that, we're going to use Eulogy Moondock as an example. As Eulogy, just like Alexander, is an infantry attack. Alexander has versatility, but we're going to talk about versatility in a sec. So we see Eulogy right here, and don't judge the talents. I was playing around with the Eulogy for the longest time. Here's the thing. When it comes to attack, okay, you don't have that many things you really can do. Honestly, getting here is relatively expensive for very little given. Troop attack have 10% chance to cause the commander's troops to go on a rampage. Increase damage by 2% for the next 3 seconds, but skills cannot be used during this effect. So to get here, you're going to spend a substantial amount, and of course this is going to grow probably all the way to 10%. But still, to get here, you're going to be spending a huge amount of talent points. I don't really see you going this way almost at all. Well, you will be going this way, but not like maxing this tree. Versatility is really nothing it really has nothing meaningful in it. Versatility is some sort of a weird mix-up, and I'm kind of looking through for a versatility person as we talk. It's kind of a weird mix-up between all sorts of things. So you have gathering speed, you have reduced damage taken by watchtowers, you have reduced damage taken from garrison, you have crazy things like when the commander is serving as garrison commander, you get rage. So it's a kind of like a garrison gathering half whatever mutant tree. Don't mess with it. There are small points you can get out of it, which we can talk about in a future video once we actually get Alexander and start talking about how to level him and how to set up his trees. But ideally, the only thing he leaves you with is to be a full infantry commander, which means pretty much enjoy this tree. Quite honestly, increase health of units and increase march speed of infantry units is also a very worthy place to put your talents in. I actually really like this as well, which most people leave out. Another 1% of extra defense. This is also not bad at 1% of health, but I would probably leave this for very, very last if you have nothing to do with it. You can definitely go ahead and get this tree out of the way. And then in the attack side, I think that the things that are most worth in this attack is, of course, grant an additional rage, which is always good. On top of that, effortless, getting all the way to effortless seems like a very possible thing. You need 3, 5, 8, and these guys are 6, so that's 14, 17, 18 total points to get here. So you shouldn't have an issue getting here. But honestly, because of the way his trees are set up, all you're left with is as an infantry talent tree, which then begs the question of how do I pair him? So the way I see him is if he is already a defensive, relatively strong damage factor, if he gets the 10%, if he hits that 10%, right? On top of that, he adds massive amounts of extra attack, infantry attack, march speed, all that good stuff. A lot of people were saying how he can potentially be the replacement for Charles Martel in the Richard Charles combo. And I definitely agree with that. But I also think we can start talking about the potential of him being a primary commander. The thing about him is that you got to keep in mind that usually what ends up happening in terms of skills is that when a skill is procced by the lead commander, the secondary commander procs 2 rounds later, which means that if you have a secondary commander that can build up on top of this shield, it can be really interesting to have this shield, and then for 2 more turns of this shield you have, or for 2 more turns you have the proc. So you can consistently keep chaining all these skills over and over by potentially having him as a first commander with Richard in the back. Having Richard up front with him in the back also is not the worst idea, but we're gonna have to see results and actual battlefield combat to see whether or not which one of these is a better potential for front runner. Now this doesn't make Alexander Charles Martel pairing a bad idea either. You can really get to a point where you're sending a stronger, more well-rounded brute force, better buffed set of commanders of infantries by sending a Martel with a crazy damage factor, plus defense and health, plus on top of that counter damage bonus. And really, you can get to a point where his shield and all that, his shield and Alexander's shield can be a real nuisance as a pure damage infantry duo. So Alexander obviously pairs well with Richard, pairs well as a primary commander for Charles as well. Richard, you can swap them both depending on situations. And obviously, the other pairings that are very interesting are pairings with commanders that are leading commanders, such as Mehmed. At the point where you're hitting a city and you want a secondary commander that can help you keep holding strong in a long-term rally, having someone like Alexander the Great in the back proccing shields non-stop, on top of the fact that you're doing massive amounts of damage, and the longer the fight happens, which means the rally that you're hitting, the building that you're hitting is getting hit more and more, and it's getting more reinforced, and the rally takes 20 minutes, an hour, so forth and so on. The likelihood of you hitting this 10% consistently is decent. You're gonna hit that 10% quite a few times, and on top of that, you're gonna be swapping between super defensive and super offensive based on when the shield procs and then the skill swaps. So I like him as a secondary for sieging cities as well as of right now. There are plenty of other pairings we can start talking about. We can also pair him as a secondary for an eulogy in case your eulogy is expertise and your Alexander is not. If you have a situation like mine where in the big account I have both Richard and Charles maxed out, and I also have, of course, eulogy. Having eulogy as a primary for my Alexander while Alexander grows is going to be a really interesting one. And then from there, swapping him with one of the expertise commanders is going to make the secondary infantry march much stronger. Bottom line is this: Alexander opened up a situation for 2 infantry marches on the battlefield right now. And quite honestly, with a Martel, Richard, eulogy, Alexander pairing, or any of these paired up around backwards, essentially having Yulji pretty much as a primary because he is expertise at a max level or so. Same thing goes for Sun Tzu. You can put him at the front of almost anything. I'm a little bit of a bigger fan of Yulji. This is why on this account he's maxed out first, but once my Sun Tzu gets to that level, I think he's gonna also be very, very strong for battlefield combat, especially with Alexander. One last thing that I want to talk about is how you should use Alexander now and how Alexander can change the game in the future. I see this game going to a point where slowly and steadily we're going to get so many more commanders that getting commanders maxed out is slowly going to become a bit easier, and it's going to be a game of those who are at the top are spending just as much as they've been spending previously, but have all the commanders maxed out very quickly, while those of us who are not as big spenders will be able to max out more commanders at a faster rate than now. I understand why now is so slow because there aren't that many legendaries, but the bottom line is more legendaries and more epics are bound to happen, and it won't stay this slow. So I think that this commander is going to be one, I need to remember to point this way, this commander is going to be one that we're going to be seeing a lot of in the future, and he's going to be mixed into the meta of the game for a very long time, primarily because, first of all, shielding an ally can be crucial, especially if you're doing a nice little rally plus swarm. On top of that, he can later on cause massive damage to 3 targets nearby. Very good for open field combat. He's in general very geared towards open field combat more than towards sieging per se, but still I think that with these skills and with these talent trees, what you're seeing is an infantry commander that's going to be very, very strong in the meta of the battlefield, the open field combat of the future as a potential first or secondary full infantry march. What do you guys think about my commander breakdown, about all that we talked about, everything about this commander? Leave me a comment down below. Be a little easy. It's the first time I actually talk about commanders. Is there anything I missed, something you guys want me to break down further or do more research about before coming into this? Some of these pairings are a bit harder for me because some of these commanders either I don't have maxed out or I really haven't had the experience with yet. So hopefully I will get better at analyzing commanders. Leave me a comment again down below if you guys have any suggestions, comments, feedback, anything. I'm the Gekko. I'm out of here. Thank you guys very much for watching this video. I hope you guys hit the thumbs up before you left, and if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button too while you're at it. I'll see you guys sooner rather than later. Hopefully another video coming out tomorrow if I manage to put it to get everything done on time. If not, Saturday we'll be streaming 4 p.m. UTC like always. I'll see you guys sooner rather than later. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week, almost weekend time. Take care. Peace.